icon of Hollywood, James Dean. James Dean is going to die young. He's going to die. He's only 24 years of age. He dies in 1955, September 30th. James Dean, he's a rebel without a cause, and he started only like 3 Hollywood movies. I think it's just, he had a pretty face, and he had that hair, right? So he was like, styling his hair, which is unheard of. It was high and tight, right? That's all we could do, just high and tight. But for James Dean, he's young, pretty, got that, spends all of his time in the morning doing his hair. He became an icon. He was huge in America. And what sucks is, he's a rebel without a cause, but when it comes to him crashing and dying, he didn't, rebel against conventional wisdom. So when he needed to rebel, he had a reason. There's an oncoming vehicle in his lane. And it was said that he said that guy's got to stop. He'll see us. That's reported to be James Dean's last words. And I've seen this repeated in other books. And they print it as just truth. But Wikipedia actually, digs a little bit deeper into it, and they question it. Regardless, whenever I'm driving down the road, I think about if I see an oncoming vehicle coming in my direction that's in my lane, first thing, you got to slow down, assess the situation, possibly completely stop, or, try to, if you had to choose, I would go to the right side, drive off of the road. If they're staying in, your lane for a long duration, so the possibility is they might, stay on the road and swerve the other way. So it's more likely that they won't drive into the ditch. So I think if you need to, slow down. Try to stop if you can, but if you're stopped in the middle of the road, it makes me think about it, I guess is what I'm saying. James Dean died, and we can learn from people's deaths for many reasons. Why did they die? Was it their heart that stopped? Was it their brain? Was it some ailment? Could we have stopped it? Could we have done something better? So James Dean's driving down the road. That guy's got to stop. He'll see us. So he assumed that the person who is in his lane driving, in his lane straight towards him was going to stop. That guy's got to stop. He'll see us. That guy's got to stop. He'll see us. Right? He'll see. No, he didn't. And they head-on collision. 55 miles an hour. Both of them are head-on collision. Just mangled the shit out of his car. So let's get to some details here. So Raskin believes that any report about Dean and Wutherich, so I guess his friend Wutherich was in the, a Ford two-door. So a Ford two-door is the other car. He's driving with his buddy Wutherich, and it was Wutherich that, I guess, had reported that guy's got to stop, he'll see us. But they're saying it's pure conjecture. According to the coroner's deposition taken of Wutherich in the hospital and later in the 1960 interview given to an official Porsche magazine, Christoforus, he couldn't recall any of the exact moments leading up to and after the crash. He couldn't remember any of the moments before. Was he drunk out of his mind? How could he not remember any of the moments? And the coroner, they took a deposition, so perhaps, Wutherich he just wrote down. A lot of times I could, type a lot better than I'm handwriting. If I'm handwriting, then I'm just, I can only put so much information and I can't, change it. Whereas if I type it out, then I can type it out exactly as I, believed it happened. I could be comprehensive. And so the death of Hollywood actor James Dean happened in 1955, September 30th, near Cholame, California. And James Dean, okay, so he's competing in several auto racing events. He's traveling in a sports car racing competition. He's traveling too, so he's doing all these, racing games. And his car is going to crash at the junction of California State Route 46, former 466, and California State Route 41. So right before he gets into this car wreck, just a head-on collision, he's going to die at 6:20 p.m., and the accident is going to happen, I guess, 5:45 p.m. But at 3:30 p.m., just 2-3 hours prior, he's going to be pulled over. So, you know, if he hadn't got pulled over, the butterfly effect, everything, all the events after this would have changed. So I'm going to put a lot of this on the California Highway Patrolman O.V. Hunter at Mettler Station on Wheeler Ridge, just south of Bakersfield, for, you know, ticketing James Dean at 3:30 p.m. on the day he died for driving 65 miles an hour, which is 105 kilometers per hour, in a 55 miles per hour zone, 89 kilometer per hour zone. So 10 miles, 65, and a 55. So this asshole, O.V. Hunter, right, he goes ahead and pulls James Dean over, gives him a ticket. Here's $100. I'm going to take $100 from you because, you know, you're driving a little bit fast. So, yeah, fantastic. Hickman, following the Spider in the Ford with the trailer, was also ticketed for driving 20 miles per hour over the limit. So I guess Hickman is following James Dean. The speed limit for all vehicles towing a trailer is 45 miles per hour. For some reason, that's 72 kilometers per hour. After receiving the citations, James Dean and Hickman turned left onto SR 166/33 to avoid going through Bakerfield's slow 25 miles per hour, 40 kilometers per hour downtown district. SR 166/33 was a known shortcut for sports car drivers who was going to Salinas, called the Racers Road, which took them directly to Blackwell's Corner at US Route 466, later SR 46. So this O.V. Hunter, this police officer, this cop who come and saved the day from, you know, James Dean just tearing up these streets. This is a racer's corner, so you have racing cars just driving by all the fucking time. 10 miles an hour? Give me a fucking break. If you're driving a racing car and you're only going 10 miles an hour, you should be thankful. Oh my God, if it's 100 miles an hour, if it's dangerous, if they're swerving from side to side. But a lot of times, what I've noticed is people who, you know, some people just cruise when they drive. Other people are driving when they drive. So if you're driving and you're focused and you're paying attention, so when, you know, you're driving maybe a little bit fast, I think that they're more alert and they're more focused on the road than most of the drivers who just get, you know, hypnotized and they just go so slow they almost, you know, fall asleep. They drool all over themselves and then just, you know, go to sleep. So after receiving the citations, James Dean and Hickman turn left, right, and then they go this way at Blackwell's Corner. James Dean briefly stopped for refreshments, met up with fellow racers Lance Reventlow and Bruce Kessler, who was on their way to Salinas in Reventlow's Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Coupe. As Reventlow and Kessler were leaving, they all agreed to meet for dinner in Paso Robles. Okay, so that happened at 3:30 p.m. Now we're at 5:15 p.m. James Dean and Hickman left Blackwell's Corner, driving west on Route 466 towards Paso Robles, approximately 60 miles, 97 kilometers away. James Dean accelerated in the Little Bastard, I guess that's what they called his car, and left the Ford station wagon far behind. Further along on Route 466, the Porsche crested Polonio Pass and headed down the long Antelope Grade, passing cars along the way toward the junction of Route 466 and Route 41 at approximately 5:45 p.m. A black and white, so he's been driving 30 minutes. A black and white 1950 Ford Tudor, Tudor, two-door. Ford Tudor is driving at a high speed, was headed east on Route 466 just west of the injunction near Shandon. Its driver, 23-year-old U.S. Navy veteran and Cal Poly student Donald Turnipseed, made a left turn onto Route 41 headed north towards Fresno. As Donald Turnipseed's Ford crossed over the center line, James Dean, clearly seeing an imminent crash, apparently tried to steer the Spider in a sidestepping racing maneuver. But with insufficient time and space, the two cars crashed almost head-on. A witness, John Robert White, reportedly saw the Spider crash into the ground 2 or 3 times in cartwheels and landing in a gully beside the shoulder of the road northwest of the junction. I'm not sure what sidestepping racing maneuver is, sidestepping. I don't know if he's just, trying to just kind of sort of just turning, but not, like sharply turning. And what can you do? So this guy's driving, and we're going to find out, I guess, eventually how fast he was driving. He was driving 50 miles, 55 miles an hour before. But they said that James Dean was going about 85 miles an hour, which is 137 kilometers per hour. Nelson estimated that the speed was about 55 miles per hour, 89 kilometers per hour, based on the wreckage and position of James Dean's body. So using math and physics, and he was driving 55 earlier, that day. So we know how fast he was driving, so we can only assume the other guy was driving, so fast too. So even, let's see, he was 55, he was driving 65 in a 55, right? Before, so I'm going to assume that this is a 55 road, so the other guy's driving 55 miles per hour, which is also 89 kilometers per hour. For those who are in favor of, transferring to the metric system, which the whole world is on, and it's base 10, and it's so logical. The speed of light is tied to the metric, so it's consistent with relativity. So the two cars crashed almost head-on, and so that is head-on, right? It wasn't head-on, but that means they essentially clipped the sides, but it's so that's going to actually make it worse, because that's going to hit the same impact, but it's also going to be spinning them all around. If they head-on collision, their cars would just stop, but then maybe that's a worse thing, because it would have just thrown their bodies. But whereas if you hit, then some of the impact onto the body would be lost. The vehicle, they'd still be in the vehicle. So yeah, that's how James Dean is going to die. Witness John Robert White sees him, go into a cartwheel, 2 or 3 cartwheels. So this is a fucking crash. You're going to have Sam Kinison, who's going to die in a car wreck. You also had that Fast and Furious guy. He was in Pleasantville. I mean, he was, almost, I don't want to say the same shit, but it's, car crashes, so they're all kind of different. So it looks to me that James Dean, you want to believe that, he was in the right, and with that quote, he's going to turn, right? He's not going to stay in our lane. He's going to turn off, I think, right? Something like that. It makes me think, and so I think it's good to be a better driver, because ultimately you shouldn't assume that the other driver is going to turn. You should, in fact, assume that they will drive straight towards you, and then if you do try to turn, then they'll try to run right into you. So you have to be completely vigilant. You have no idea what they're going to do. You can only control your own behavior. Also, because it's a terrifying situation, you got to pay attention all the way up until impact. You have to do this, do that, do anything until you can get out of danger. If that person is driving in your lane and they are making no attempts whatsoever to turn, slow down. That's the first thing you do, just slow down, right? And then I would turn to the right. So we can learn from this, right? See, the sheer velocity of the impact since the much heavier Ford broad sliding 39 feet, 12 meters down Route 466 in the westbound lane. The accident was witnessed by a number of passers-by who stopped to help. A woman with nursing experience attended to James Dean and detected a weak pulse in his neck, but according to the woman, death appeared to have been instantaneous. That can't be, if he's got a weak pulse, he's mostly dead, but he's still tiny, he was a little bit alive. And it wasn't instantaneous, because she would have had to have ran over there. And so he was pronounced dead on arrival at 6:20 p.m. So James Dean, Robert Bossard declares him officially dead, the emergency room physician. 6:20 p.m., 1955, September 30th. The cause of death listed on James Dean's birth certificate is listed as a broken neck, as well as multiple fractures of the upper and lower jaw, along with both the right and left arms broken, as well as internal injuries. Snapped his neck, internal injuries. Warren Beath wrote that James Dean had died in the arms of his friend, Bill Hickman, despite reports. So that's interesting. That's better, right? Bill Hickman. How did Hickman get there? Was there a Hickman? I thought it was Wutheridge or some shit. So Bill Hickman was there all of a sudden. I guess he was following them. And maybe he did die in the arms of his friend. So that is a good friend. Because it said that his death appeared to be instantaneous, but there's a weak pulse in his neck. So Bill Hickman apparently shows up on the scene, and he's a good friend. Wuthering survived with a broken jaw and a serious hip and femur injuries that required immediate surgery. Turnip Seed, the guy that was in the wrong lane, the guy that caused all this, he was only slightly injured with facial bruises and a bloody nose. After being interviewed by the CHP, Donald Turnip Seed hitchhiked in the dark to his home in Tulare. So, if you look at earlier, right, James Dean broke the fucking law by driving 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. He needed to be punished. That cop was a good fascist Nazi cop. Thank you for protecting us. Protecting and serving us. And then when James Dean is murdered by this guy for, you know, whatever fucking reason, why the fuck did he stay in that lane? Why didn't he turn? Was he drunk? Was he on drugs? Is he stupid? What the fuck is this guy's problem? Why did Donald Turnip Seed stay in the lane of James Dean? That's the official story, right? So, if the official story is to be believed, they just question them for a little bit, and then the guy who kills James Dean walks, you know, they just ask him a couple questions. He had facial bruises and a bloody nose. He had a hard time too, right? He caused this crash, so he just killed James Dean. He's got all that trauma he needs to work through now. So CHP, that's something police, right? CHP. Then he just hitchhiked in the dark to his home. He walked home by himself. The cops wouldn't take him home, but they did, you know, let him go free, which I guess is probably a bigger gift than taking him home. So yeah, kill a man, you get to walk home. Drive a little bit over the speed limit, you're gonna get in trouble. And, you know, the butterfly effect, you can't always predict it. Really, you could change any of the things that happened prior to this happening, and that would have changed the course of history. So why these two met up on this road at this time, it's freaking crazy. The lessons that I learned is don't expect the vehicles in the opposite lane to turn. You know, really, actually, people behind you, they can do a pit maneuver, have you spinning around in a circle. All you got to do is just tap you on the right or left-hand side, and that might even flip your car. So you can only rely on your actions and your reactions. Try not to react too much, but I feel like there's a time I ran into the tree, but I kept steering, because I knew the car was out of control, so I needed, I kept doing something until the point of impact. I guess I could have tried bracing, because that actually gave me a metal chip in my face. So that happened. I thought it was. I was impressed with myself because I stuck with the car kind of going out of control up into the point of impact. So I feel like I did anything and everything I could do. Once I got into the spin, once I started fishtailing left and right, then I stuck with it all the way up into the very end. And so that's what you got to do with, anytime. There could be some situation, someone's slamming on their brakes. Don't tense up. You shouldn't freeze up for really anything. So stay alert the entire time. Try everything that you could try to get out of danger. I would turn right. I would first slow down. Someone's in your lane. So don't speed up. That's only going to make the injury that much worse for both of you all. Slow down. And you have to play defensive. You got this barreling, bullet, this 2,000-pound bullet barreling right, towards you. And I would probably turn to the right as soon as possible and then just keep driving out as far as possible. And unless that other driver was meaning, to intentionally wreck into you, the farther that you drive to the right in a field, the farther away from danger that you are. So that's, it's good that I thought about it. So I have a plan of action, right? If somebody's in my lane, I'm in the right-hand lane. Somebody's either passing or somebody's just, drunk and they're just cruising in the wrong lane. Then that's when I, oh, shit. That's when I recognize danger, and now I got myself a plan. Right? Slow down, brake hard if necessary. If it, at first, He may, give him a chance if you detect it quickly, if it's still a distance. But if it's right in front of your face, you got to turn. You got to turn immediately. It might be better just to flip the fucking car. That way the car would roll over the oncoming vehicle, and the impact would be a lot less by rolling the car, by flipping the car and rolling it instead of, head-on collision. And especially if you don't have your seatbelt on. You should have your seatbelt on. That's another thing. If you have your seatbelt on, then your body isn't going to be thrown out of the car, and that's usually, your neck gets broken by the windshield or by landing on the pavement after you get through the windshield. So, having a seatbelt would prevent that. Rolling the car, I think it'd be much safer with a seatbelt on than a head-on collision with the seatbelt on or off. So R.I.P. James Dean, a rebel without a cause. He could have rebelled against, this turnip seed. Donald Turnipseed fucking kills James Dean. Doesn't even get a ticket. Doesn't go to court. Takes a life. And, did he get sued? Did anybody, write him a nasty letter or anything? Fucking killed, in the great American. And yeah, it was an accident, so, I'd show him some mercy. But, you took a life. And ultimately, the whole point of law is to prevent one person from injuring another person. And so I'm really frustrated with laws that hurt people that don't hurt others, like speeding. So James Dean didn't hurt anybody at all earlier that morning, but he got fucked with by the cops. So the cops were fucking with James Dean up until the very last day of his life. Up until the last couple hours of his life, the cops were fucking with James Dean. Rebel without a cause. He had a cause. He was driving 65 miles an hour. What the fuck? 10 over? Fuck you. I'm in a goddamn Porsche. I'm James fucking Dean. And it's out in the country. It's out here by myself. Give me a fucking break. Who did I hurt? Who did James Dean hurt? He didn't hurt a goddamn soul. But this Donald Turnipseed took James Dean's life. Took his life. And the cops didn't even ticket him. He gets in no trouble at all. And that's a court thing. And if there's one time you should take someone to court, ticket them, and go after them and chase them in a possible arrest using state power, when there's a dead body on the scene, there's probable cause that possible murder took place. He could have been a hitman. He could have done that shit intentionally. I mean, why the fuck did he do it? If he wasn't drunk or on drugs, was he fucking sleeping? What the fuck was he doing? So I'm not satisfied with any of it. I'm not satisfied with this story. I need to know more. What the fuck? Cops gonna fuck with James Dean, but they ain't gonna fuck with the guy that kills him. There you have it. God bless America.